Welcome to Jar Genius. I'm your host, Russ Perry, and this is a podcast where we dive into the business of creativity. Each episode, I'll explore the minds and stories of innovative leaders and companies who have paved the way and are shaping the future for creative businesses around the world. From groundbreaking business models to extraordinary creative campaigns and the innovations of technology we use and will use ahead, I'm excited to help you not only run a creative business, but thrive in this ever-changing and always challenging landscape. Brett, welcome to the Design Pickle headquarters for probably what's going to be our first episode for Jar Genius.
So I'm excited.
So we'll get into your backstory here in a second, but I thought, it's kind of funny to start this podcast and this whole series that I'm going to be doing. It's all about creative businesses, and not just creativity inside of design, but people that are doing things creatively. And at the surface, it might seem like we have very similar businesses. We both do design. We both do it in kind of like a subscription flat rate model. Mm-hmm. But as I was catching up with you before this, I think that's about where it ends.
It is. Yeah, for sure.
So welcome to the podcast. Let's get people up to speed about Designjoy. And I'd love to hear the aha moment for you as you went from employee, corporate to today.
Yeah. So, Designjoy at a basic level is similar to Design Pickle. Target a different demographic, but do things similar ways. It actually evolved from Design Pickle, funny enough.
My heart is warm.
I know, right?
I'm like the vampire father.
That's why it's kind of funny to be here. Yeah, back in 2017, I was an employee. Came across Design Pickle at some point in time, and we were talking off camera how at the time your service wasn't really servicing landing pages and branding and that type of design request, and that's what I had done. So I borrowed what you had sort of popularized and sort of set forth and launched Designjoy based on those type of requests. And so it's a little bit different in that regard too. It's just a one-man show.
Yeah.
So one-man agency. I do everything myself. It's no PMs, no other designers. So yeah, I've been doing this. I launched back in 2017.
That's definitely different. My first thought in starting a new business was I need to hire people. I need to not be doing this myself. So aside from being so inspired by the amazingness of Design Pickle, I want to go to what was the problem you were seeing inside of your experiences, in terms of creativity, the process, the business model, and kind of what drove you to want to solve that in a different way?
So I'm not sure what your history was before Design Pickle. Mine largely revolved around being an employer of traditional agencies. Mm-hmm. Dabbled in freelancing, so I got to experience both of those sides. Was full-time, employer as far as designer goes. So I kind of dabbled in all three different mediums at which a designer usually finds themselves. And there's we don't need to go in depth with the problems of each, but to be short, agencies are typically very expensive. They're very slow moving. It can take months to get up and running. Freelancers, on the other hand, can be very quick. But not necessarily always reliable, not necessarily always available. A lot of times you're being billed by the hour. And so I felt like Designjoy and really Design Pickle at the same time was sort of a blending of all the benefits of those sort of three mediums without all of the negatives that are typically associated with them. So it's not that expensive. It's quick to get started. You can get started the same day. No contracts or no meetings, and you get work relatively quickly after that. So it was just kind of a blend of everything that I'd experienced, and I just got rid of all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
So why did you want to do it all yourself? Because to me, that's the opposite of building a business.
Yeah.
You get hit by a car driving over here to the headquarters of Design Pickle.
I get that a lot.
Everything is done.
I get that a lot.
But there's got to be a real belief or something that's driving you to that, because you've built it to be a pretty big business just on your own abilities. And I think there's probably some uniqueness to that.
Yeah, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. I think at the heart of it, I run a fairly successful business, but at the end of the day, I identify as a designer.
Right.
That is my identity. That's what I love to do day in and day out. I love the client work. I'm not looking to necessarily get away from it. And I don't really know how to build a team. It's not really something that like it honestly scares the living daylights out of me. Like other people relying on me being successful is not like my family is enough, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I think for me it's just the leaning on like the simplicity side of things and just doing what it is that I can handle. As long as my family is supported, I'm fulfilled. And it's somewhat sustainable. Obviously, you run the risk of getting sick, getting hit by a bus. Like all of these things are true.
Right.
But 7 years in hasn't happened yet. Hopefully nothing bad does happen.
You got some wood right here.
Yeah.
No.
And so, yeah, I think it's just to keep it simple,
Right.
if I were to simplify it down. So
now, when you go back 7 years and you're thinking about Brett, I'm going to start a business. I'm still the designer. And now fast forward 7 years, like go back to the mindset of that guy, like the fears, the beliefs, the limitations. Like what are some of the things you think has changed the most over this journey?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think self-confidence has changed. When I launched Designjoy, there wasn't many of you to look out and say, this model is going to be a hit. It's going to be successful. I mean, there was relatively few players back in 2017. Right. And so, I bet on myself. I sort of devoted some time to it and realized that I can do a heck of a lot more than I thought I could. I could take on a heck of a lot more clients than I thought I could. I could do, things in terms of just design in general that I didn't think I could do. And so that's, I think having gone through it, looking back, I think I'm just far more capable than I thought. And so, yeah, like I was a, pretty insecure entrepreneur. I don't know that you're necessarily the same. You were, I would like to think you were probably just like, yeah, I'm going to do this. It's going to work. And like, I'm going to hire a bunch of people and just make this work.
I was secure, but I've also had some insane failures because of that. Yeah. So like, but you burn it to the ground level.
Yeah. But like me, I am so risk adverse.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to touch risk with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
So, there's stories like I kept my full-time job until, I was running Designjoy for 4 years or 5 years, keeping a full-time job just across the street here in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
And so just to make sure that like I didn't fail.
Right.
And I was making more money in a month than I made my full-time salary.
But you still kept it.
But I still kept it because it was that security. I don't feel like I was unwise to do it necessarily, maybe as long as I did, but it just gave me so much breathing room and security and just kind of trialing this thing out. That I really felt no risk in building my startup, which is not something a lot of people can actually say. But
did you still feel there was a risk when you were quitting your full-time job? Or were you like, we're good?
It did. I mean, like much like you, I believe it took off way quicker than I had thought. I mean, I went the product hunt launch route where, you put it on this platform and then you just get customers instantly.
Right.
And I did it so quickly, it took off. I felt like the whole time that it could dissipate just as quickly as it came.
Right.
And so I wanted to my goal is just to be as far away from zero as I could possibly can. And so I pushed myself to my limits and built as big of a business as I could by myself. But yeah, when I quit my job, it wasn't like I was 100% confident. But looking back, I definitely made the right choice. Things took off immediately after taking that leap. Which shouldn't be a surprise, but it was to me. And,
now I want to talk about like you have launched a lot of your business in the public eye. Like you're on Twitter, you're publishing numbers and successes and process and failure. But I share this sort of sentiment is like there's a lot of people who don't like what we do in terms of the business model, in terms of the systemization or kind of packaging of design,
commoditizing it. Yeah.
So like, what has been some of the experience of facing, shall we say, the haters, facing that public pushback? Because today is easy to criticize, right? But you're obviously growing and clients pay you and it's not an insignificant amount. So there's value being created.
It's interesting. I feel like on one hand, I am a very sort of public figure when it comes to my agency, the whole sort of design subscription model in general, especially on Twitter. And so I take this criticism, face to face, not behind some sort of like company or, profile.
It is you.
It's like, it's me, it's Brett at Designjoy. It's like, I am Designjoy. And so It's an interesting juxtaposition when you take the account of designers and the account of people actually willing to pay you for your services.
Right.
Because in the design sphere, it's mostly all criticism.
Yeah.
You're commoditizing it. It's a race to the bottom. There's no value there. You're not taking the proper steps to take really good care of your clients and produce meaningful work. And at the same time, I have more clients than I could ever dream of having, and they continue to come.
Right.
So it's this weird, really odd thing. I try not to let myself. I don't take myself too seriously. I listen, but I don't take a lot of criticism to heart, especially for those that aren't using my services.
Right.
But yeah, it's a challenge, right? It's like Design Pickle, I'm sure experiences it as well. Maybe not like as face to face, but it's something I hear every single day.
It's why I was no longer allowed to manage the Design Pickle social media accounts. I think 2018 or 2019, I was forced off because I was getting into like arguments with haters online, writing like essays to them. And finally my team was like, dude, you'll never win. Like you will never, like you just let it roll. Like, just don't worry about it.
It's tough. My wife takes it the worst.
Oh, really?
Like she cannot stand when people are hateful towards me or critical of me. I'm a sort of like in person, a different person than I am online.
Yeah.
I sort of have a persona online and sort of an agenda to push this model forward in a way that I feel is effective, that yet doesn't please everyone. And so, creating some haters is just sort of a part of the process. But
I will say, I wasn't sure if you're going to be a dick or cool. And you were cool.
I've had a lot of people.
You were actually a cool guy.
I'm actually a pretty like quiet, introverted. I literally wake up, do my design work, close my laptop down, hang out with the family, play some video games. Yeah. That's my life.
But that's like, marketing though. I mean, you are Designjoy, but Designjoy is actually, it is separate. It's a brand, it's a concept, it's a business model, it's a product. So I think you've created Brett at Designjoy, but there is this other piece of who you are, which is the entity in the company.
Yeah, and I think playing on the provocatives is in some cases helpful if the provocatives are genuine. Like there's a lot of things that we do similarly that are very contrary to the general marketplace and the way that we sell design and execute design. And playing on that, again, just creates a lot of criticism because a lot of people are sort of they do what they're taught. There is no other way. And then when they see someone like me managing an agency by myself with, a couple dozen clients, it doesn't click.
Right.
And so the natural tendency is to be like, you're a liar, you're a scammer. Like there's no way this is true.
Yeah.
And so for the first couple of years, I was like you. I was like, keyboard warrior, just I couldn't stand it. But nowadays I'm like, I'm 7 years in. Like I'm not at this point in time. I'm not going to waste my breath arguing with people and trying to prove myself. And then I do again another controversial thing, I should say. I do talk a lot about money.
Yeah.
And which I feel like is a little bit odd that it's taken in such a critical way. I think if you remove the fact that like you didn't think I was lying from the equation, I think you can start to make sense of it. But when it's predicated on that, I get the hate. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's like, I believe in the model. I believe that it works. I see it work every single day. I see what it can do, not just in terms of Design Pickle growing into, tens of millions a year, but just from like an individual freelance level, adopting this sort of model and applying it to your life and what it can bring you, not just in terms of money, but the things that money brings you and your day-to-day activities and the style of work and how much you work or how little you work. I think it's an ends to justify, it's a means to an end for me. And I think that's what draws a lot of people is when I do share the MRR and that sort of thing.
Right.
Because it makes people think, how is he doing this?
Right. Well, it's something that I've always found really fascinating in creativity is that, there's a great book I always recommend called Thou Shalt Prosper. And it's a book about money. And it's a book about how money can really be demonized, but money is actually a symbol of value and value creation. Mm-hmm. And inside of creativity, there are really no standardizations for value. You could say this logo is $5, $5,000, $5 million. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like a commodity like gold, where you just know what the price is and here it is. Yeah. And so I find it so interesting because companies like yours, companies like mine, and there's other service companies that have adopted the model of kind of a productized, packaged model, what we're really doing is we're saying we have a structure, we have a price point, we have a process. Do you want to buy it or not?
Right.
And that exists everywhere.
Right.
And yet if creatives do it, somehow
exactly.
it's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and the reality in any economy, your price is the measuring of who interacts with you and buys is determinant of the market and the value. Exactly. So like, if people don't agree with it, they won't buy.
And that's fine. And that's something like, again, I don't know if you struggle with this, but like for me at first, I didn't have this view as much, but now I'm like, we both lay our services out there for what they are. Yeah. It's very clear.
Here it is.
You don't really even need to book a call with us or have a meeting with us at all. It's very clearly outlined. This is exactly what you're going to get. And you either like it or you don't. And it's nice for us because that prevents clients from getting into our systems and then just being like an uproar that it's not anything like they'd expected.
Right.
I'm sure it happens to a small degree with both of us, but for the large part, it is outlined and you either buy it or you don't. And I think, another thing that I struggle with too is just the fact that like just people don't believe that you can create meaningful designs within this very sort of like quote unquote commoditized model, which I think is a bunch of BS too. I mean, I create meaningful designs every single day, all day long.
Right.
But, yeah, I think a lot of the hate comes from other designers, not much from outside of that sphere. And I'm okay. I'm totally okay with that. So,
well, I mean, it's especially close to home for us because with my model, we use international contractors in emerging markets. And one thing I'm really proud of is the stability of income we've been able to create for these creatives. And, all the time, even still, people insult these creatives. They talk as if they are second or third class citizens. They're uneducated. They're slaves, all of these crazy things. And I'm like, like my designers have degrees and they've had successful careers in agencies. Like, like just because they don't live in America doesn't necessarily somehow
newsflash.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very interesting. But to your point, most of that criticism is coming from Western university educated designers.
Exactly. Yeah. You just don't hear, like I never get on a call with a client that says the same sentiments. They're always like, how do I sign up? Like this is too good to be true. And I'm like, again, you just juxtapose that with what you hear from the design community. And I've just come to, I actually kind of have fun with it at this point, like writing that line between not pissing them off too much, but
poking, antagonizing.
Yeah, I'm like, obviously it's working.
My ultimate judo move is when I've actually, prior to my getting kicked off social media, Design Pickle social media, I would actually end up flipping a few of these folks to try our services, these designers. And when they realize, oh my gosh, I can have like a production designer for my business and my creativity, they're like, oh, this isn't so bad. Like, this is great. It's predictable. It works. I know the fixed costs. Like, this is fantastic.
It's something else, man.
So looking at your journey, I love hearing about creative strategy inside a business, but often strategy is created after challenge. And so as you're looking back at the 7 years, like what were some real hard parts inside of this journey, trying to push forward this model? Yeah. There's not a lot of people doing it. You're doing it in an actually totally different way, even than the incumbents. Like where were you at a point where you're like, I don't know, or this fucking sucks?
Yeah. So it's not the common problem that most entrepreneurs face. I had quite the opposite. Like I never from day one had an issue, and I still don't, getting people to sign up for my service. Never been an issue. The issue has actually been the opposite, in the fact that like I don't know how to stop myself from taking on too much. And so we were talking off camera about having 50 something clients at one time, and I guess you could boil it down to greed. Along the way of I was just this normal designer making this like pretty average salary till I find myself in a position out of nowhere where I'm earning more than I ever thought I would ever earn. And I didn't know how to shut it off. Like I didn't know how to say no. It's like when you build something and you put it out into the market and people are willing to pay you thousands of dollars a month to access it. How do you get to a point where you're like, no, I'm good.
Was there ego involved too?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was doing. It's like, I had your playbook to like kind of get off the ground. I had that. And I think you literally released an actual playbook back then. I didn't use some of it because I didn't want to pay an ad agency, stuff like that. But other than that, running it solo and scaling to 50 clients a month, really, to my knowledge, had never been done, nor was it ever supposed to be done.
Yeah.
And so that resulted in, there wasn't like a lot of like magic bullets or things that I did. It was just brunt work hours, like just working myself to death.
How did your personal, mental, physical health hold up?
Not well. So, I mean, it was all I ever did. I had no enjoyment outside of work. I had nothing to look forward to. From breakfast past dinner, worked until 10 o'clock at night. Ended up in the hospital a couple times from what I thought was heart stuff and it being anxiety. I don't really, I don't mean to over dramatize it because I don't get anxiety, but that was a couple of times where it was like a check and I need to figure this out and get this under control. And then, every time I thought the answer was like, let's increase our prices, let's go from, 1,000 to 2,000 and that'll do it, right? I'll make more money, have to work way less. I made more money, but it just sent more clients in.
The same thing.
And then I thought, all right, well, when I do that from 2 to 4, it's definitely going to slow things down. It's like a little scary. I don't really want to slow things down, but I need to. The same thing, increase prices, dump of clients, 5,000, same thing. So, it was a rough journey. It was like the best journey building a business and actually seeing success, but there is such thing as too much success too quickly.
So what caused you to realize, was it the panic attacks? Was it like abundance and you're like, wow, I actually don't need it? Like, when did you kind of have that moment to sort of mature into the boundaries that can balance business and life and keep it all organized?
I think it was once the model was, in my mind at least, sort of proven. I know we talked earlier about getting as far away from zero as possible. Once I had been as far away from zero as possible for so long, I thought, all right, I can sustain this. So if I do pull back, I'm confident enough that the revolving door will continue to revolve and new clients will continue to come in and that sort of thing. And so it was a little bit of abundance, a little bit of confidence. And then I scaled back. I cut clients. I, at one point, had over 100 calls booked through Calendly to sign up. I canceled every single one of them, increased my prices, kept the clients that I felt were getting real value from the service, but I also enjoyed doing their work. And so now I operate at 50% the size, but I make just as much money, work 6 or 7 hours a day doing the kind of work that I want, like the exact kind of work that I want. No type of design request that I don't want to do, I don't have to do. And so now I feel like I'm living the dream.
And you can come to Scottsdale to hang out with me.
Exactly. Yeah. So, exactly.
Couldn't do this 3 years ago.
No, hell no. No, I couldn't go to dinner 3 years ago. So yeah, it was a journey to get there. I also feel like it made me a lot more efficient. Like managing 50 clients, you get really, really efficient with what you do.
Totally.
You become almost like you don't have to think to do it, which is something that I feel like most designers will unfortunately never get to experience, because I mean, who would find themselves in that position where they have to perform? And so I feel like even though now, you could think managing 20 clients by yourself might seem like a lot, having gone through that phase, it seems literally like nothing to me.
Right.
Comparatively speaking. So right now, pretty good.
That's good. Glad you're with us still.
Yeah, it's looking a little rough.
Now, as you look ahead, there's a lot of directions we can go when we look at the future. Technology, consumer buying patterns and whatnot. I'm really curious, like, how do you see your business model evolving in the future? Is it going to be Brett one-man show until you buy enough Airbnb real estate properties to support, disclaimer, he has not told me, he has not told me that about this. Like, are you just stacking cash and investing? Are you looking to do something beyond this, or you're just having fun and not really thinking about it?
Again, this is where you and I are going to probably differ. I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. Like, I honestly, as bad as irresponsible as it sounds, and I know I could not afford to be this irresponsible if I had a team the size of yours.
Yes.
Luckily, it's just me.
Planning slightly important.
Yes. I do not plan whatsoever. I have never had a roadmap, never had a marketing plan. I told myself from day one, I'm going to ride this out as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And then figure it out once it's over.
Yeah.
And so what the future of Designjoy looks like, I have no other picture than what it is today. There's other projects outside of Designjoy that I want to work on, but as far as Designjoy goes, I don't see it evolving until I have more information.
Right.
Until obviously things are going to be changing. And so I'll obviously adapt to that. But as of right now, I don't plan. I don't know what I'm going to do next year, the year after that. I have no plans to
A
change
true
anything.
creative. A
And
true
that's what I'm saying.
creative at heart.
I'm just not that type of guy, I'm like, and I guess I could afford to be when I don't have people relying on me to,
So I have to ask a question because it's rare that I'm talking with and interviewing another creative entrepreneur. I'm usually the only creative entrepreneur in the room, and I get to ask this. So I get to ask you the question, which I'm sure you've been asked 1,000 times. Generative AI and the trend of low access to these creation tools. How do you see this impacting creative business models? Not just us at our businesses, just kind of creative, like you're selling design, you're selling creativity, you're pushing it out there. And now we have the ability to do stunning illustrations with a few keystrokes. What are your thoughts on that?
It's not something I've thought that deeply about. I do have thoughts on it. I do think certain sectors will be hit harder than others. I am fairly confident that the sector that I play in, which is mainly branding, websites, UX, UI, will be affected less than industries like illustrations, for example, which is a big one right now. Stock assets. I think as a whole, my advice to designers is be better than average. Like the way that AI works is based on a sum and average of data. And so if you're above that mark, and the further you get away from that mark, the better off you're going to be. It's for those that I think fall below that'll be affected the most, but I'm not this like scorched earth, like AI is going to take everybody's jobs. I don't buy that at all. I think there'll be a place for it, just like Canva's come into the mix, and we all adjust, and you're using Canva now. And
we get paid. Design Pickle, we have clients who pay us to do Canva for them.
Exactly.
Even though it's the easiest tool in the world.
And they have pre-made assets in there.
Because they have time they need to do other things for.
and they know that somebody else can do it better. And it's going to work the same way with AI. I'm just not, like, I hate when people say, like, I get that all the time. AI is going to take your job, Brett. Like, get out of these like order taking industry and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm not worried in the least. I'm excited for what it will bring me to be able to do my job better, but I do not think it'll replace people like me.
Well, it comes down to, what are you actually selling? Are you actually selling, abilities to use Figma really great? Or are you actually selling your 10, 20 years of experience and thinking and ideas and everything you've compiled in your life to come up with ideas, which is, at the end of the day, a prompting generative tool is basically all of the internet's information. And you sit there with a blank prompt to create. Well, it's kind of like Adobe. Like you sit there with a blank canvas.
Exactly.
Like maybe the tool's slightly easier, but how do you use it, what you create with it, what you put into it is going to differ.
It has no human experience. It has no intuition. All of the things that make great designers great. Like, again, it will run its course. It'll definitely service a certain part of the market, but I just don't think it'll be as drastic as a lot of people are claiming, especially in the creative industry.
I mean, I love it. I'm encouraging everyone to use it for ideation and concepting. Even our own clients. It's like use it, prompt, get creative, do stuff. Because if you send that to a designer, now we're in the ballpark. Like we understand what's going on. And if it sucks, the designer's going to tell you, but at least we're not just dealing with words and abstract things that have no meaning to it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a replacement. It's a tool. And I think you'd be smart and you'd be unwise not to use it, and you'd be smart to use it. But yeah.
Awesome. So final thoughts here as we kind of wrap up. This has been a good conversation. So we learned you have no plan for your life. You're not burning it down. You love your clients. You say no. I would say if you had to synthesize, and you've mentioned a few times, I haven't had a problem getting clients. And I'm sure even I hear that. I'm like, man, must be nice. If you can synthesize, like what's been the sweet spot for why? How would you explain to someone why is that? Because as you and I both know, that's not common.
I think I have a bit of an unfair advantage that would be difficult to replicate. I think in a lot of ways, depends on what segment. I mean, in a lot of ways, you are the face of design subscriptions. In my world and what I do, I'm sort of the face of design subscriptions, which feels a little unfair because you were before me. But, and so I feel as though I've been attached to that. And with this boom of people realizing that this model actually works on both ends, the model itself is blowing up. And so I've been sort of helping people build them and making that sort of a thing that I do on the side, and just being really early on for 7 years that I think I have this like first early to market kind of advantage for me. And again, that means that if you're coming up now and you're creating a model like this, you wouldn't necessarily have all the advantages that I had. But yeah, I this is all I talk about. It's all I tweet about. It's all I write about. It's all I do. And so I've just stuck to it and become known in that world.
Love it.
And so, yeah.
So consistency of message and marketing, and you build a good pipeline.
build a good pipeline, just be out there all the time. Like at this point, I just have to tweet. That's all I do. I have no other backup plan. I don't know how to do traditional marketing as well as I used to. Like things have changed, right? I grew up in social media, did that big thing, but that's all changed. I don't even recognize all the other I don't know how to create a reel. Like I would be screwed if I did not build an audience on Twitter and have that platform for my using. But yeah, that's all I do now. And fortunately, that's pretty easy.
That's great.
It allows me to just design all of the other hours of the day, and that's
because you're just hammering a message. You know your lane. You know what your value is, and you have fun with the haters every now and again.
I have a lot of fun with the haters. I'll look at my wife. I'm like, you won't believe what I did today. And I don't know. I get a little bit worried about my reputation, but at the same time, like, who am I trying to impress on here? I don't know these people. So.
It's all about the work and the impact.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I get to meet with guys like you and you don't think I'm such a dick to not invite me, then I'm good. So
no, it's all good. Well, look, where can people find you? What's your domain? Where to follow? What's the best spot?
Yeah, the domain is designjoy.co, and the Twitter is Brett from DJ, and that's about it.
Awesome.
That's all exists.
Awesome, everyone. So thanks so much. We're going to be kicking off conversations like this. I don't know how often, but regularly. Creative people doing creative things and thinking really about what creativity is as a strategy inside of businesses, campaigns, you name it. So head over to jarofgenius.com to get signed up for new episodes, behind the scenes, links, obviously, to guys like Brett and what he's doing. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Jar of Genius, sponsored by Design Pickle. To learn more about the topics discussed, get access to any of the links mentioned, and submit ideas for future seasons, head over to jarofgenius.com. Now, if you enjoyed the show, you know the drill. A solid rating on your favorite podcast platform helps others find what we are creating and join the conversation. We'll see you next time, and never forget, creativity is your secret strategic weapon.